What's up, everybody? Demon back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we are doing the 11th episode of Godzilla Thon. This one is going to be for Destroy All Monsters. So this movie is, first of all, absolutely amazing. Second of all, both at the same time, and I know this is kind of a weird concept, at the same time, overrated and underrated, but that doesn't change my opinion on it at all. I have my own opinion on it. Mine is somewhat different from a lot of other people's. Now there is one thing I'd like to mention here. I was just gonna not mention it at all, but I feel like it is pretty obvious. I did not have a ton of time to work on this title card, despite the fact that there is quite a bit of monsters here. Obviously, there's quite a bit missing. I, of course, don't appear in this title card at all like I usually do, and I think it's most noticeable with Baragon, Ghidra, and Rodan that I just kind of ran out of time when trying to make it, so it's kind of really quickly put together, but at the same time I spent so much time on, you know, you have to spend a lot of time on each individual monster, so I think I get a pass for the fact that 3 of them don't look as good as the other ones. Anyways, getting into this review for Destroy All Monsters. Actually, technically we're not yet, because I have one other thing to say. But mostly getting into the review for Destroy All Monsters. This is the final Godzilla movie, or it was originally intended to be the final Godzilla movie, so this is where me and a lot of other people consider the early Showa era to end, is right here, 1968's Destroy All Monsters. This was supposed to be the final Godzilla movie. Of course, that is not the case, but at the time, Toho was basically like, you know what, this is going to be our last science fiction giant monster movie, and we're going to call it there. We're not going to make any more of these. So they put all of their best-selling monsters into one movie, and they just made an amazing movie with it. We have tons of monsters who had their own solo films joining in here, monsters to cross over from other movie series into here, such as Rodan, Godzilla, Varan, Mothra, all had their own solo movies before this point. And then there were other monsters who crossed over into this series, such as I believe Manda was a crossover from another series, and so on. So, and Baragon also crossed over from another series, which was Frankenstein Conquers the World, was his first appearance. There is some continuity errors in this movie if you're considering them all to be in one continuity, which they really should be considered one continuity, considering the fact that you have crossovers like this, and sometimes they'll make references to the other movies, so you really should consider them all to be in one continuity. But there are some errors with that, such as, and I'll bring them up now so I don't have to get into it later. How is Baragon, Anguirus, and Mothra in the stages that they're at? So what I mean is, Baragon and Anguirus both died in their original appearance. Baragon was killed by Frankenstein. Anguirus was killed by Godzilla back in Godzilla Raids Again. Of course, you could say, you know what, this movie takes place in the future, so these could be the son of those two monsters. They could be like the kids, as well as, I don't know, I've never seen the original Varan the Unbelievable, but I don't know if he makes it out of that movie alive either, so he might or he might not, but there could be a continuity issue there too with Varan. However, like I just said, I have not seen the original Varan. Despite me trying to find it, I haven't been able to find it. I found the soundtrack. That soundtrack is incredible. It's absolutely amazing. So is this one. We'll get into the soundtrack at the end of the video, like always. But with this movie, how are the only two that I know for a fact are dead up to this point? How are Baragon and Anguirus alive? Is, you could say these are the kids of the previous monsters, or these are just relatives. You could also explain that pretty easily by saying, you know what, if we are able to accept the fact that Rodan was resurrected by a volcano and Ghidra the three-headed monster, he died in his original movie, of course, as well. So if we're going to say that, then I guess we could just assume that Baragon and Anguirus both were revived, or somehow came back to life one way or another, rebirthed, whatever you want to make it. Or you could just not think about it at all and just go, you know, it's a fun movie that didn't really think about continuity, and that's the truth, but it's fun to overanalyze things and make them make sense. So, the other issue is Mothra. Mothra is a pretty big issue because Mothra went from Mothra, the movie, where she, of course, started as a child, turned into an adult, died in Mothra vs. Godzilla. Her baby was a baby in Mothra vs. Godzilla. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster was an adult in Sea Monster. Now here, way, way, way down the line, generations later, we have another baby Mothra. So this one's definitely the kid of the previous ones, or like grandchild of the previous ones. But there's an issue here when you think about it like this, is what is the deal with Mothra being on Monster Island? Because Monster Island is a place where all the monsters are controlled together, and why is Mothra there? I don't know. Mothra was the god of Infant Island, and why she got taken off Infant Island and placed on Monster Island is never explained. What happened to Infant Island? Where's her fairies? Never explained. I guess we're just supposed to assume that maybe they died. I don't know. It's never. It is never even touched up on, so we don't know what's going on with Mothra and why she's here. Getting into the VHS trailers, which is a funny place for me to start. First of all, actually, with the VHS itself, I want to give a shout out to Hollywood Video for the VHS, because Hollywood Video used to be one of my favorite places. I used to go there, rent movies from there, and I got my VHS from there. I still have it, or I didn't necessarily buy it from Hollywood Video, but Hollywood Video shut down, and then I bought this from someone who used to go to Hollywood Videos. I think I bought Destroy All Monsters at a garage sale. It was one of the last Godzilla movies I ever got. I think it was the last Godzilla movie I ever got from the Showa era. Oh wait, no. Godzilla vs. Hedorah was the last one I ever got from the Showa era. However, this one was the last one I ever saw from the Showa era. So I do have a cool connection with it for that, as well as Hollywood Video, which of course played a big role in my young childhood. If you want to know more about that, go check out my Who's Better, Godzilla or King Kong video that I did. Who do I like more? Is a really old video on the channel, and you're going to have to scroll for a while to find it, or you could just type it into the search bar on the channel and find it. So, getting into the VHS trailers, there was always a VHS, there's always a trailer in this. It's the second trailer to play right after Gunhead and right before some sort of random anime commercial. There was always this one that played, and every time I would pop in this VHS, like I've been saying in all my Godzilla-thons, this is not the first year I've done a Godzilla-thon. This is the first year I've ever reviewed the Godzilla movies. But I've been doing a Godzilla marathon every year consistently for the past many years. So every time I pop in Destroy All Monsters, which is very often, I never skip the commercials because I always like to see this one. It's for an anime. And I was always super curious, what is this anime, because it looks amazing. This most recent time I popped it in the other day, I think 2 days ago I was watching it, and the VHS, I knew that this cool commercial was coming up, and so I let the VHS play. The second commercial on there, this is the one that I really liked. It turns out it is for something that obviously plays a big role in all of our lives, all of our Godzilla fan lives currently, which is Neon Genesis Evangelion, the trailer for the old one. I guess back in the 90s, I'm assuming, because this is when the VHS came out. So I guess there was I guess Evangelion's been around for a lot longer than I realized, which is also really cool because I want to start getting into Evangelion just because everyone's been telling me it is so good. Everyone's just been telling me it's an amazing series. Of course, I want to get into it because of Anno, who he obviously is a big part in that show. I don't know if he's creator or if he's just like kind of the showrunner director of it or whatever. I think he might be the creator of it. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he is also the director of Shin Godzilla, which is why I really wanted to get into Evangelion this year, is because I want to check out where his stuff starts, or where his introduction, I guess, to kaiju starts. I know they're called angels in that show. But I want to start getting into that show because I've heard if you watch that and then you go check out Shin Godzilla, you'll appreciate Shin Godzilla even more. And I already love that movie, so I really want to get into Avan. I just haven't been able to get it for cheap yet. So, anyways, just the trailer plays, and I always thought it was really cool. Now knowing that it is actually something that played a role in my life in 2016 is really cool. Of course, we did a lot of news updates about Shin Godzilla where we mentioned Evangelion, so I think that's really awesome. Now getting into the actual movie, yeah, figures it's about time. We're 10 minutes into this review and I still haven't talked about it. So getting into the movie, in the future, the distant year of 1999, I know that's a played-out joke, but it's true. It's the future for when it was made, 1968, but it's the past for us, like Back to the Future too. So in the future, 1999, There's regular rockets missions to the moon. Space travel's just like an everyday thing. Skype exists pretty much, although you have to hold a cell or you have to hold a telephone to your ear when you talk into the video call. Um, we see our very first time we ever see it. I don't think it's ever specifically called this in the movie, but Monster Island makes an appearance finally. So Monster Island shows up in this movie. All the monsters are there. It's really awesome. We meet our main two players. I'm going to say they're the main two players. I know technically one of them isn't, but we meet Katsuo and Kyoko Munabe. She is going to wind up playing a big role later, but it's not going to technically be her. So they have a little FaceTime, a little face call from Earth to the moon. We find out that Katsuo or Ketsuo is he's stationed on the moon. He flies around in this spaceship called the SY-3, which was obviously a big role in this movie. And I guess the production crew just thought, you know what, this is an awesome spaceship. We're going to use it to our full advantage. There's evidence to support that there's a space monster or some sort of spaceship near the moon that comes into play towards the end of the movie. The humans and kaiju on Monster Island are all knocked out by some strange yellow gas. Rodan attacks Moscow, Paris is attacked by Gorosaurus, Beijing is attacked by Mothra, London is attacked by Manda. However, we don't really see... Oh, and Paris is attacked by Baragon. However, we don't really see a lot of these attacks. We just see kind of like little clips of them on TVs. The attack that we see the most of, and we still see very little of it, is Godzilla's attack on New York. I would have loved a full sequence with this show of Godzilla destroying New York. I think that would have been incredible to see him knock down the Empire State Building, to see him do all this crazy stuff in New York. However, I realized the budget and the time constraints wouldn't allow for that, even though it would be incredible. And I just have to say, this one scene of Godzilla in New York feels, and it's like 2 seconds, and it feels way more like anything Godzilla related than the '98 movie did, and that was a full movie of what was supposed to be Godzilla in New York. So, Destroy All Monsters really takes the cake on Godzilla New York action, doesn't it? We see our spaceship, the SY-3. As I said, it plays a big role throughout this movie. We see it spots a UFO in space, and then they head back to Earth. They're going to investigate what happened on Monster Island. The Monster Island crew and monsters are under the Keelak control. The Keelaks are they're our antagonists for the movie. They are aliens who are just kind of there. We'll get into their motivations here in a minute. They're just kind of there messing up stuff. They're the ones controlling the monsters. Even though I just said that, I felt the need to restate it, I guess. Our astronauts are taken prisoner. However, they soon escape. The Keelaks actually make a professor kill himself. He was a professor who was kind of hyped up throughout the first act of this movie. They make him jump out a window and kill himself. Then they attempt to capture Ketsuo. The police show up and rescue him before anything can happen. The professor is operated on. His mind control device is found. The police start searching for the mind control devices as Kyoko Munabe is walking around. She's also being controlled by the Keelaks by this point of the movie. She's kind of our main antagonist other than the Keelak leader. She's going around. She's in a subway tunnel. I really like this scene. She's in like a subway. She's in a train. Then you hear a news bulletin basically warning, watch out for this girl, she's extremely dangerous. So she hops off the subway, goes upstairs. Once she gets to the top, they start checking her, looking for this incision on her neck where the mind control device would be. However, hers are disguised as earrings, so they don't find it. They send her on her way. Soon afterward, you just hear these sirens start going off in Tokyo. She looks right towards the camera and smiles. Cut to Rodan flying over Tokyo. This is an amazing scene. This whole sequence is absolutely incredible. So, Rodan is flying over Tokyo, destroying stuff. Shortly afterward, Godzilla makes landfall in one of the districts. He starts blowing stuff up. Manda shows up out of nowhere, and there's one of the most iconic shots of the whole series. My favorite shot of the movie, other than all the monsters lined up in front of Mount Fuji at the end of the movie. This scene is Manda, and a lot of people really love this because the wire work is incredible. I don't know how they pulled off this special effect, but having Manda wrap around this bridge and then destroy it with Godzilla standing there blowing up a building in the background is so amazing and well done. Everyone who gives this scene props, it deserves it. I mean, this is one of those scenes that, although I said the movie is over and underhyped, we'll talk about why here at the end of the review. But during this whole scene, it is just so incredible. The music, the special effects, everything is so dang great. You just have to love it. So the military launches their attack on Tokyo. They basically wind up demolishing more than the monsters do. All of a sudden, Mothra bursts out of a train station. Basically, we cut to Tokyo after the attack. It is completely leveled. Nothing is left. There's like remnants of what were buildings. Our main crew, I believe, is underground at this point just because of how bad everything got. The Kilax build a base in Izu. That's basically their cover-up base. Then Tetsuo or Ketsuo, he uses the SY3 to find the Kilax. When he's on his way, he actually discovers their other base. The mind control on Kyoko Munabe is broken by Ketsuo. He rips her earrings right out of her ear, and it breaks the mind control. It's kind of a brutal scene because if you think about how painful that would be, he rips it straight down, so it had to tear right out of her ear, and then she starts bleeding everywhere, and then she freaks out. So the mind control on her is broken. Her memory of what things were like when she was mind controlled is lost. Godzilla starts defending the Kilax base, and Geras joins in to defend it as well. They start fighting the military, which is pretty cool. The SY3 discovers the other base. This is what I was referring to a second ago. The SY3 discovers the actual Kilax base, which is on Mount Fuji, before Rodan chases them off, which is weird because later on they'll be lured into the base, so I don't know why they weren't just lured into the base right there. Godzilla continues to defend the Kilax base before the Kilax leader lures the SY3 crew into their base so she can explain their peace treaty that she wants with Earth. Basically, she says as long as Earth... It's kind of like Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster. Or not Ghidra. It was kind of like Invasion of the Astro Monster, where the spaceman explained, you know what, we're not going to kill you or anything. You're just going to obey everything we say, and then you'll be cool, right? So in this movie, it's actually... They just want to colonize Earth. They just want to like have their own little place on Earth under Mount Fuji, and then they want Earth to obey their laws, basically obey their wishes, and everything will be cool. They won't use the monsters against them, but they will always have the monsters as a trump card just in case. Of course, our crew denies this offer. Monster Island's HQ, or Monster Island is turned into an HQ, and it is used to break the mind control on the kaiju. However, this doesn't go through up until they discover a base on the moon. It turns out that the moon the Kilax has a base on the moon where the moon transmits the radio waves down to Earth that control the monsters. I know there's a lot of stuff going on. So the moon transmits radio waves down to Earth that control the monsters. The SY3 goes to the moon and starts searching around for what could be going on. They are soon attacked, however. This was a double play because the SY3 soon launches their attack. They were ready for the battle, and so they were ready for the attack. This starts a series of space wars, a battle in outer space, so to speak. The humans win, the monsters' mind control is lost, and the moon base is destroyed. The Kilax have to live in high temperatures, it's revealed, or they will turn into these little space worms. The humans get the monsters to go to Mount Fuji, where they all line up, and this is my favorite shot of the movie, when Godzilla's quote-unquote leading them in Mortal Kombat. When they all go line up in front of Mount Fuji and Godzilla's ready to lead them in battle, the Kilax unleash King Ghidorah, which is, King Ghidorah gets his butt whooped. They unleash him. If you think about it, he would, so I don't know why they would just unleash him on his own. They unleash him on the monsters. This is a 10-on-1 fight. It is really unfair, even though some of the monsters only cameo and they don't actually do anything in the fight. Like Varan shows up once. You see him kind of jump over a mountain, and then he's not in the fight at all. So the Kilax unleash an attack with Ghidorah. It's a 10-on-1 fight. Ghidorah actually holds his own for like the first 10 seconds of the fight before Godzilla comes up behind him and knocks him out in the back. Godzilla beats down on his back. It is pretty cool to see all the monsters' individual attacks on King Ghidorah. Anguirus bites his neck at one point, and then Ghidorah lifts him up into the air. Mothra and Kumonga, they start shooting webs on Ghidorah, trying to knock him down. Minya has a really great kill shot at the end of the fight. Gorosaurus has some pretty sweet moments where he drops kicks King Ghidorah, jumps up and nails him in the back, knocks him over. There's a great scene when King Ghidorah actually tries to retreat, Godzilla grabs onto his leg and won't let him leave. Ghidorah almost lifts Godzilla off the ground, but then Godzilla looks up, atomic blasts him to the face. Godzilla brings Ghidorah down to the ground, knocks him onto the ground, and they basically curb stomp him. Like Godzilla kicks one of his heads into the floor, Anguirus comes over and bites one of his other heads to death. One of his middle heads, he only has three. His middle head like lifts up in the air. This is one of like the best minion moment of the whole series. Minya blasts a little smoke ring, and it winds up choking Ghidorah's middle head to death, and then it falls on the ground. Ghidorah's like twitching there. He can't get up. It's like Glenn when he gets his head bashed in and his hand's still twitching. Pretty cool. So Ghidorah is basically just completely killed at this point, and Ghidorah tried to retreat. Godzilla wouldn't let him. They stomp him into the floor. He's dead. A spaceship shows up out of nowhere and starts blowing stuff up. It burns through a building in Tokyo, and it sets Rodan's back on fire a couple times. Godzilla kills the Kilax. He finds their base in the side of Mount Fuji. He kicks like this big bubble in, and he kicks into the base and destroys everything, killing everyone. They all turn into those space worms. The SY-3 finds the spaceship and destroys it, and that's the movie. That is Destroy All Monsters right there. I know it's a very convoluted plot if you think about it. Like, so much is going on in this movie, and one thing, now that we're done with the plot, one thing that I have to say is I don't understand the hatred towards this movie. So, like I said, it is overrated and underrated at the same time. It is overrated because people say, just watch it for the end fight. It is so incredible. It'll put all the other Godzilla fights to shame. I disagree with that. I think the end fight, although it is absolutely amazing, I think there are a lot better moments throughout the whole series that are a lot better. And like, I feel like there are some moments that are more necessary to watch a movie for than this, certainly. That Shin Godzilla Atomic Breath scene is that Who Will Know Tragedy scene. That one is one of the ones that I would say, you know what, that's one of the things that really made that movie. I would say that scene is probably, in my opinion, cooler than this whole battle at the end of this movie. There are some other things like other moments that I think are more worth watching than this. King Kong vs. Godzilla, their battle at the end of the movie. But this battle is still absolutely incredible. However, the underrated portion of this is everyone saying that the only good stuff is the monster stuff, and the movie drags, has really bad pacing issues. You know, everyone says, oh, the Destroy All Monsters is only worth it for that end fight. I disagree entirely. I really love the sci-fi stuff in this movie. I know there's other movies like Invasion of the Astro Monster that do it better. Well, that's depends on your opinion. I personally actually think that this movie does it better, only because I really feel like this one, the Kilax have more weight to what they're saying. We see the monsters destroying stuff all over Earth. We see different cities in different countries being just completely leveled. And so we really do feel a lot more of a threat from the Kilax than we ever did from the people from the Planet X. And then the other thing that I think a lot of people overlook in this movie is when they just say, oh, it's only good for that end fight. Every special effect scene in this movie is incredible, except one. The one scene that I really hate of this movie that's a special effects scene is Godzilla comes up and chases off these soldiers, these foot soldiers. He chases them off, but Godzilla is only like 50 feet in that scene, and it's really awkward because he shows up out of nowhere, and he's like King Kong size, and then he kind of like waves them off, and then they leave. Really weird. I hate that. I think it would have been like a lot cooler, you know, if I know they didn't really have a sense of scale, like how big is Godzilla, they didn't really understand, but he would be a way bigger compared to those soldiers than it's presented in this movie. Either that, or I'm just so used to seeing a 200 to, 400 foot Godzilla, that seeing a Godzilla that's only about 150 feet maybe just kind of throws me off. I don't know, I'm going to stick with the first option here. I'm going to assume that what is actually going on is they just didn't have a sense of scale, didn't understand how big he actually was, and therefore Godzilla comes off a lot smaller than he really is, and that's a big problem. But other than that, every special effects scene in this movie, whether it's the SY-3 in the space battles, or whether it is that incredible Tokyo destruction scene, every special effects sequence of this movie is so well done that you have to give the movie so much props for that. And a lot of people say, you know what, you're right. The special effects in this movie is the only thing we're seeing. That is also wrong, because the alien invasion plot is, at the same time, unoriginal. At the same time, it's a new spin on it. I mean, we've never gotten the aliens that have destroyed everywhere on Earth or have attacked major cities all over Earth, unleashed this many monsters on things. Yes, this whole alien invasion plot where the aliens come down, have monsters under their control, and use them to fight the humans, that has been done in Godzilla movies. It's been done, in Invasion of the Astro Monster, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. It will be done to death towards the end of the Showa series, but this one does it, I think, one of the best, if not the best, because you feel a sense of threat from the monsters all the way up until Ghidorah shows up. And then if you're like, wait a minute, I remember Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, or especially I remember Invasion of the Astro Monster when Ghidorah lost to Rodan and Godzilla alone. You see Ghidorah show up at this end scene and you're like, oh, well, he's done. So, everything in this movie. I think the human plot is really good. I think it's interesting. I like the human characters, even though there's only one stand-up, and that's Ketsuo. And I feel like I'm pronouncing his name wrong because I feel like it's really similar to Tetsuo from Invasion of the Astro Monster. And I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying his name differently or not. I don't know. But I feel like the human characters in this movie are likable. It's the actor who played Goro Maki from Son of Godzilla, and same voice actor as well, which is pretty funny. I'm assuming that the VHS that I have and that English dub for Son of Godzilla that I have are done by the same people. Anyways, I think the human characters are likable enough. I think it's a very interesting sci-fi plot. I feel like this movie is not just worth watching for the action scenes and for the monster scenes. I think it's worth watching for everything. I think this is just a great movie. And now getting into everything else, because we've already touched up on how amazing the effects are, the monster scenes themselves are awesome. The only problem I have with the monsters themselves is that none of them are under their own free will all the way up until the very last scene of the movie when Godzilla kills the Kilax. Because other than that, the humans, I don't know if it's 100% stated that the humans have control of the monsters necessarily. They are just able to use the mind control device to get the monsters into the Fuji area. It's not really stated that they have them and they're weaponizing them and they're using the monsters and they have all the control over the monsters. It's kind of assumed that the monsters have free will. It's just that they were put in this area by these humans. The humans lose control at the very end of the movie, and the monsters go back under their own 100% control, and that's when Godzilla kills the Kilax, and it's basically stated they realize we're not the threat anymore, they're not the threats to each other, they need to take out the larger threat, and there you go. That's the only problem I have with the monsters. Other than that, the only thing that I don't like with them is, like I said, they're under someone else's control the majority of this movie. They're basically, all of them are used as big guns by the Kilax throughout the whole movie, and then at the end of the movie, the humans get control, and they're big guns for the humans up until, like I said, that last scene Godzilla kills the Kilax. So, other than that, though, the monster stuff, the monster action, everything they do on screen is so cool. I love it. And, the human stuff, like I said, is good. The music. Let's talk about the music, because, first of all, the theme for this movie, really, really great. I love the theme for this movie, and a lot of people do. Second of all, this has some introductions to some very classic Godzilla music, such as and I don't know if that's ever been used before up till this point. It might have been, but I feel like this is where it gets its introduction. Eventually, it'll turn into this. Which is the way more classic version of it, but either way, I think this is a good place to start. I like this song too. That's pretty much everything with this movie. The only last thing that I have to say is that, of course, I reviewed the English cut, which is pretty obvious based off me saying that I only have the VHS. I only reviewed the English cut for this movie. I've never seen the Japanese cut for this movie. I would really, really like to, but I never have up until whenever I get it on Blu-ray or DVD, hopefully Blu-ray. So whenever that happens, I'll find out what the Japanese cut is like. Up until then, I've only seen the English cut of this movie, so if you were expecting a review of the Japanese cut, I'm sorry I didn't specify sooner. I forgot to write it down up until the very last second, which also meant that I forgot to announce it until the very last second. So yeah, this is the review for the English cut of Destroy All Monsters. That's everything I have to say for the movie. What would I rate it? I would rate it a 9 out of 10 because, like I said, it is a major hit for me. I love this movie. The only thing it's missing is, like, really, really interesting human stuff, such as we had in, movies like Godzilla, the original 1954 movie, Shin Godzilla, some really interesting like allegory and commentary and satire in that one. This one doesn't necessarily have any of that stuff, so I do have to knock it for that. That's the only point that it loses. Other than that, special effects, music, human story, monster action, everything is so good. Go check this movie out if you haven't seen it. It's a great place to start if you're getting someone into being a Godzilla fan. This is also one of the ones that I would recommend. Like go show them this one if you want to show them. This one's kind of a campy movie. It's not really. I think this one takes itself serious enough, but it is kind of just such an over-the-top premise that you're not going to be able to take it 100% seriously. However, like I said, they do take everything serious enough in this movie to get the point across that this is a real threat. So go show this one to newcomers. I'm planning on showing this to my little brother over the weekend, so I wonder if he'll like it. I'm sure he will. Other than that, guys, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. D-Man, out.